Marketing That Works is the podcast for business owners who want to move their brand forward so that they can bring in more sales and clients. I'm Danielle Harris, and I'm bringing you what I know from more than 12 years of experience in traditional and online marketing. I have created marketing strategies for businesses of all sizes, from multi-million-dollar corporations to early-stage online businesses. Remember, some marketers chase fads. I believe in mastering the fundamentals.
If I can make concrete advertisements simple, you can simplify your marketing. And it starts with what words you're using. You are highly skilled at what you do, and you spend countless hours thinking, studying, and talking about your industry. Inevitably, that means you adopt a way of speaking through words, acronyms, and shorthand that is specific to your industry and expertise. This is great for you as you get more knowledge and talk to your peers in your space, but when it slips into your marketing, you run the risk of creating confusion. By defaulting to words and terms that are specific to your industry, you may be alienating people who want to work with you. Because as we love to say in marketing, confused people don't buy. So today, I'm going to break down how using industry lingo or jargon is creating confusion for your audience and how you can start simplifying your message to attract more clients. Now, before we go any further, I want to break down what I mean by industry lingo or jargon. It's really just special words or expressions that are used in a particular profession or group that are difficult for others who are not in that industry to understand. Now, I worked for a decade doing marketing in the concrete industry, and let me tell you, the concrete lingo is extensive. So, I know a bit about jargon, lingo, acronyms, and shorthand terms. Now, you might default to thinking that complicated or hard to understand jargon is only a problem for science or engineering fields, or maybe even tech and finance areas. But the thing is, we forget or underestimate what is and isn't industry lingo. Let's say you work as a videographer. You use the term pre-production in a lot of your marketing. To you, the word pre-production and everything that it encompasses is obvious and simple to understand. But to people who have never worked on a set, they could be completely lost at the sight or sound of that word. Regardless of what you do, you may be using words and phrases right now that are super clear and obvious to you without realizing that people outside of your industry have no idea what you're talking about. And unfortunately, a lot of your ideal clients won't bother asking you what that word or phrase means. Let me give you another example from my concrete days. 318. People would always say it. It's 318. We need to update 318. And I had no idea what they were talking about. When I first started in that industry, I was like, what does that mean? What do those numbers mean? And what do they have to do with concrete? Imagine to my surprise when I found out 318 is a book. 318 is a foundational book that tells all engineers how to build a structure using concrete so it doesn't fall down. So pretty important. And for people that are in that field, it is so basic. They learn about it in undergrad. So by the time they are working in their career, it is so ingrained. So for me though, as someone new to the industry, it was just a number and it caused a disconnect in communication because it just wasn't obvious for me. I was confused and I did not know the next action that I needed to take when someone mentioned or referenced 318. Your audience may feel the same way with the word you are currently using too. Again, this isn't an issue that is unique to the concrete industry or to engineers. We are all using words or phrases right now that to our ideal clients are just unclear and undefined. So for example, I had a client in the craft space. She would sell custom items, sewing names on Christmas stockings, creating custom dog bandanas, and create baby blankets with the child's name and birthday on it. So she wanted to promote that work by creating content that referenced the technical names of the types of stitches and the techniques that she was using because she thought that that was going to set her apart. But honestly, that was a level of detail her audience just wouldn't understand. If her goal was to talk to other people that sew, that would be fine, but it wasn't. Rather than being impressed with her work, they would get confused and scroll away. She was talking to people who likely didn't have much, if any, sewing knowledge and wanted to buy from her, which means that she should be instead trying to provide a much simpler explanation for what she was trying to do instead of using fancy terms. So for you and your business, you might not realize that some of the terms you're using are actually confusing your audience. Let's say you're a money coach and you're talking about high yield savings accounts. You're in the money space a lot, so you might think that people know about these types of accounts and are just not using them yet. But the reality is, a lot of people have no idea what you're even talking about. What does high yield even mean? How is it different from a normal checking account or savings account? What exactly does it mean to yield? You need to break this down because if you don't, your audience may feel so confused or disheartened. And like I said before, this is all a problem because it can cause confusion, and that confusion stops action. Now, I already know that one of the things you're thinking, you use jargon because you want to only work with people who know what you're talking about. And that's fair. It could be one of the benefits of using jargon or industry terms. It does have the ability to call in the people that understand you and block out the people who don't. Showing that you're familiar with the terms can also be a bit of a credibility builder. But in the marketing space, clear and simple messaging should always be the goal, because clarity is a better filter than jargon. The ability to explain something clearly to anyone, regardless of background, is what really shows that you have expertise in the area. I'll show you another example of my time in concrete. There were times when I would organize and promote these multi-day concrete conferences. These conferences were for people with PhDs in concrete and people who had been in the industry for years. However, we still made sure that all the promotions and all the descriptions that we used for each session during the conference would be so clear that even a high school student could understand what was going to be talked about. And at the same time, the marketing was written so clearly that that same high school student would know that this was not the conference for them. We kept the description simple, even for the PhDs, for a reason. One, because everyone benefits from simplicity. No one is confused about what is happening in what session. And second, because PhDs aren't the only people that need to understand what is happening in the sessions. Event sponsors need to know and be able to understand what's happening in an event if they want to sponsor it. Accounting teams need to be able to understand what the event is that they're paying for. There are other audiences besides your target audience that are in key decision-making roles, and they need to be able to understand what's happening. And I mention this because we think that terms and jargon are the best filter when the reality is that clarity is the best filter. Clarity makes sure that more of the right people can see that working with you or attending your event is the right choice. Again, you lessen the chances for misunderstanding when the language you use is understandable. So, I've gone on about why using jargon or industry terms can lead to misunderstanding, even when you're trying to filter out people who wouldn't be a good fit. Now, I want to start and share what you can start doing in your messaging right now to bring more clarity to your marketing. And the first tool I want to mention is the grandma test. If your grandma was reading your marketing, would she understand what you're talking about? Look, you might laugh, but the goal here is clear and simple. If you are a marketing person, ask yourself, would your grandmother understand what a customer journey is? If you're a life coach, ask, would your grandmother understand what mindset work is? What I love about this exercise is that it forces you, as someone with years of experience, to think of ways of talking about something you do every day in a new and simple way. By using this, I've seen people create analogies or examples that they never would have thought of if it wasn't for trying to make things simple. Okay, so one last concrete story. Something I'd often find myself explaining to people in my life and just in work in general was the difference between concrete and cement. A lot of people believe that the two words can just be used interchangeably. So instead of getting into all the details and all the steps and all the big words, I usually deliver a simple analogy to make things clear. So think of making a cake. Cement is the flour, an ingredient. Concrete is the cake, the final product. Simple. My grandparents would understand that. Okay, so another step I want you to take towards using cleaner, simpler language is paying attention to the questions you get over and over again from your audience. If you see people ask, what does XYZ mean more than once, it is a good indication that you need a simpler word or explanation in your content. This might be a good place for an analogy or a switch up in language. For example, let's say that one of the things you mention in your marketing a lot is mindset work, but you notice that your DMs and sales calls are filled with people asking, what exactly is mindset work? Is that just journaling? This is a good indication that there is room to expand and clarify in your messaging. So, going back to the grandma test, how would you describe mindset work to her? What does doing mindset work in your style look like? How would it look different based on the client who is asking? And by doing these two exercises, you can see how your marketing can get more clear and more specific. And you'll also find that you're attracting more people. Because let's say that people assumed you meant journaling when you say mindset work. Someone who could have really benefited from working with you would have ignored everything that you said because journaling isn't for them. But when you're more clear about what you mean, that same person could realize you're the exact person they need to be working with. They simply didn't understand what it was that you actually do. So, before you write your next piece of content, use the grandma test. Test to see if you're using complicated jargon that people don't understand. This is a chance for you to explain it in simpler terms. Nobody is left guessing what you mean. Now you know why jargon and industry terms can cause confusion and misunderstanding. And you now have a simple yet effective exercise that will make sure your message is always clear. And that is so important because as someone who is so experienced in your field, you want to make sure that it is clear to your audience why the work that you'll do with them is important. You don't want something like jargon to be the reason why a dream client looks for someone else to work with. In my one-on-one messaging program, The Blueprint, I help you create content and messaging that your dream clients will understand. I'll help you stop using overcomplicated explanations and industry jargon and start speaking to your dream clients simply so they know how working with you is exactly what they need. During this 3-month program, you'll get weekly support with leveraging your experience, integrating it into your marketing simply, and feedback on how to make sure your marketing will start to attract more dream clients. Head to the show notes and book a call to get started working with me. On this call, we'll talk about how you can start creating marketing that speaks directly to your dream client using your experience. Okay, y'all, I'll talk to you next time.
If you want more marketing that works right in your inbox, head to the show notes and sign up for the email list. You'll be the first to know how you can work with me on mastering your marketing.